The great hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with the usual sounds. Delegates from across the galaxy took their seats as morning light streamed through the crystal dome above. Ambassador Veltar of the Zilani adjusted his crystalline form in his chair and looked around the massive chamber. Something felt different today, but he could not say what. The Corthans stomped to their section with heavy footsteps, their gray skin gleaming under the lights. Their leader, Commander Grix, nodded to the other delegates with his usual serious expression. The ethereal collective floated to their area like silver mist, making no sound at all. The ancient archivists moved slowly to their corner, their many tentacles carrying data tablets and memory cores. But one seat remained, empty. Veltar stared at the vacant chair in the human section. The nameplate still read Terran Federation in bold letters. The small flag still hung from its pole, showing the blue and green colors of Earth. But no one sat there. Where are the humans? Veltar asked the delegate next to him. The Corthan delegate, Captain Zorx, made a dismissive sound. Who cares? They are always late, always causing problems. Maybe they finally realized they do not belong here. Other delegates began to notice the empty human section. Some looked confused. Others seemed pleased. The session was supposed to start in 10 minutes, and there was no sign of any human representative. High Chancellor Marin of the Dominion called the session to order. Her voice echoed through the chamber as she spoke into the floating microphone. We will now begin the daily assembly. All delegates, please confirm your presence. One by one, each species confirmed they were present. The Zilani, present. The Corthans, present. The Ethereal Collective, present. The list went on through 47 different species from across the galaxy. When the Chancellor reached the Terran Federation, silence filled the hall. Terran Federation? She called again. Nothing. Very well, Chancellor Marin said after a moment. We will proceed without Earth's representative. Perhaps they are dealing with some local matter. But Veltar felt worried. In all his years on the Council, the humans had never missed a session without sending word first. They might arrive late sometimes, but they always came. And when they spoke, even when other delegates did not like what they said, they usually made sense. The session continued with the normal business. Trade agreements, border disputes, resource allocation. The Corthans presented a military budget that focused on large battleships and direct combat. The Ethereal Collective shared their long-term plans for galactic harmony, which involved strict schedules and perfect coordination between all worlds. Without human input, the debates felt strangely smooth. No one interrupted with strange questions. No one suggested solutions that seemed to come from nowhere. No one pointed out problems that others had missed. This is much better, whispered Commander Grix to his aide. No more emotional outbursts. No more impossible ideas. Finally, we can have proper discussions. But Veltar noticed that the solutions they were reaching seemed incomplete somehow. The trade agreement between the Mining Collective and the Agricultural Union had been debated for months. Usually, by now, some human delegate would have suggested a compromise that made both sides happy, even if it seemed strange at first. Today, they just argued in circles. After 3 hours, they took a break. Veltar approached the communications center and tried to contact the human embassy. The message he received made his crystal form dim with worry. All inquiries regarding the Terran Federation should be directed to the following automated response. The computer voice said, "The Terran Federation has withdrawn from galactic affairs effective immediately. All treaties, agreements, and diplomatic relations are hereby terminated. Thank you for your understanding." Veltar rushed back to find Chancellor Marin. She was speaking with several other senior delegates, including the ancient Archivist Prime, whose tentacles moved with agitation. "Chancellor," Veltar said, "I received a message from human space. They say they have withdrawn from galactic affairs entirely. What does that mean? Asked the ethereal representative, its misty form swirling with confusion. It means they quit, Commander Grick said with a satisfied growl. Good. We are better off without them. But Archivist Prime extended several tentacles toward his data cores, accessing information with rapid movements. His ancient eyes widened as he processed what he found. This is concerning, the Archivist said slowly. I am reviewing historical records. In the past 200 years, humans have been involved in resolving every major galactic crisis. Every single one. Coincidence, said the Corthan commander. Or they just happened to be in the right place at the right time. Perhaps, said the Archivist. But they also proposed a solution to the vegan water wars. They designed the current interspecies medical protocols. They created the trading standards that we all use. They were junior partners in all of those projects, interrupted the Chancellor. Other species did the real work. Archivist Prime's tentacles moved faster through his data. Actually, reviewing the records more carefully, in most cases, the key breakthrough came from human suggestions. Ideas that other species had not considered. The group fell silent for a moment. Well, said the ethereal representative finally, they are gone now. We must prove that we can manage galactic civilization without them. In fact, this may be an opportunity to create better systems without their chaotic influence. The delegates returned to the chamber and voted to restructure everything the humans had been involved with. They redistributed the trade routes that ran through human space. They dissolved the peace treaties that humans had helped negotiate. They reassigned patrol duties for the sectors where human ships used to travel. Everything passed by large margins. Without humans to ask difficult questions or point out potential problems, the votes went smoothly as the session ended. Veltar looked once more at the empty human chair. The nameplate seemed smaller somehow, as if it was already fading away. The flag hung still in the motionless air. Most delegates left feeling satisfied. Finally, they thought, the galactic community could function properly without interference from the emotional. Unpredictable humans, but Archivist Prime remained in his corner, his tentacles moving through data files late into the night. The more he searched, the more concerned he became. The humans had not just participated in galactic civilization. Looking at the records with fresh eyes, he was beginning to suspect they had been holding it together, and now they were gone. 3 months passed since the humans left. At first, everything seemed to work perfectly without them. The Galactic Council held smooth meetings where every delegate agreed with logical decisions. Trade flowed according to established patterns. Peace treaties remained stable. Then the problems started small. Ambassador Veltar received the first complaint on a Tuesday morning. The Rigel system had 2 worlds with a trade dispute. Rigel Prime wanted to sell rare crystals to Rigel Second. Rigel Second wanted to buy those crystals, but they also wanted to sell their manufactured goods back to Rigel Prime. This should have been simple. Both worlds wanted something the other had. But when the negotiators met, they could not agree on anything. Rigel Prime was populated by Zentari, a species that valued pure logic above all else. They calculated the exact value of their crystals, down to the smallest decimal. They wanted payment in precise amounts of specific materials, delivered on exact dates, with no changes allowed. Rigel Second was home to Melodians, who believed in harmony and balance. They wanted the trade to feel fair for both sides. They proposed flexible schedules, bonus payments when times were good, and reduced payments when times were hard. The Zentari called this illogical. The Melodians called the Zentari heartless. Neither side would compromise. In the past, Veltar Ezade mentioned, the humans would have suggested something that made both sides happy. Something that seemed impossible at first, but somehow worked. Veltar tried to think of what humans might have proposed. Maybe shared ownership of both the mines and the factories? Maybe a rotating schedule where terms changed every year? Maybe some completely new approach that no one else had considered? But he was not human. His crystalline mind worked in patterns and structures. He could not think in the strange, chaotic way that humans did. The dispute continued for weeks. Both worlds stopped trading with each other. Their economies suffered. Other star systems began to avoid the area because of the tension. Similar problems appeared elsewhere. The Outer Rim Transport Company could not decide on new shipping routes. In the past, humans would have suggested paths that seemed dangerous or inefficient, but somehow worked better than the obvious choices. Now, every species calculated the same optimal routes, leading to overcrowding on some paths and empty space on others. Worse news came from the military sectors. Pirate attacks had increased by 300% in just 3 months. The pirates were using strange tactics that the Council's forces could not counter. Commander Dex High of the Star Navy presented his report to an emergency session of the military committee. The veteran officer's forearms gestured at tactical displays showing recent battle sites. The pirates are fighting like... He paused, searching for words. Like humans used to fight. But worse. Explain, demanded Commander Grix of the Corthans. Our standard battle doctrine assumes the enemy will follow logical patterns, Bexai said. We position our ships to block the most efficient escape routes. We protect the most valuable targets. We respond to threats in order of priority. The display showed a recent battle near the Tau Ceti shipping lanes. Council forces had arranged themselves in perfect formation, covering all logical approaches to the merchant vessels. The pirates ignored the valuable cargo ships, Bexai continued. Instead, they attacked our communication array. When we moved to protect it, they attacked our fuel depot. When we defended that, they attacked the communication array again. They kept us running in circles while their other ships robbed the merchants. That makes no sense, growled Commander Grix. Why waste time on infrastructure when the real prize is the cargo? Because chaos works, said a quiet voice from the back of the room. Dr. Zephahai of the Medical Consortium rarely spoke at military meetings, but her words made everyone turn. I have been studying old human battle records. They did not always attack the most valuable target. They attacked whatever would confuse their enemies the most. She activated her own display, showing historical data. Human military doctrine was based on something they called constructive chaos. They would do things that seemed wrong. But these wrong things made their enemies make mistakes. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The pirates had learned human tactics, but without human restraint or human goals. They used chaos not to protect their people or defend their homes, but simply to steal and destroy. Can we learn to fight this way? Asked Commander Grix. Dr. Zephahai's reptilian features showed doubt. We have tried. Our simulators cannot predict chaotic tactics because chaos, by definition, cannot be predicted. Human commanders somehow made good decisions in impossible situations, but we do not understand how they knew which chaotic choice would work. Meanwhile, other problems multiplied across the galaxy. The Medical Consortium discovered that their research had slowed dramatically. For decades, they had made breakthroughs in treating diseases that affected multiple species. Now, their progress had nearly stopped. Dr. Zephahai realized why when she reviewed old research teams. Humans had always served as bridges between different medical approaches. Xanthari doctors used precise chemical treatments. Ethereal healers worked with energy fields. Corthan medics preferred surgical solutions. Each species excelled in their own area, but they could not understand how the others worked. Humans, with their strange ability to see patterns across different systems, had translated between the approaches. They suggested combinations that seemed impossible, but saved lives. Without humans, each species worked alone. Their specialized knowledge remained isolated. Patients suffered because the right combination of treatments was never discovered. The ethereal collective, masters of long-term planning, noticed the biggest problem of all. Their predictive models were failing. For centuries, the collective had guided galactic civilization by calculating the most likely futures and planning accordingly. Their models accounted for every known variable: population growth, resource depletion, technological advancement, political stability. But now their predictions were wrong more often than they were right. The ethereal prime, a being of pure thought energy, addressed the council with disturbing news. Our models are failing because they cannot account for unpredictability. For 200 years, humans provided what we called chaos. Variables, random factors that disrupted our calculations, but somehow improved outcomes. Give us an example, requested Chancellor Marin. The Great Drought on Kepler 452b, the Prime replied. Our models showed that the most logical solution was mass evacuation. Every species agreed. But the human representative suggested something impossible: teaching desert survival techniques to a water-dependent species. That sounds ridiculous, said the Corthan delegate. It was ridiculous, agreed the Prime, but it worked. The population adapted, the crisis passed, and the world became stronger than before. Our models did not predict this because our models cannot account for impossible solutions that somehow work. The session ended with more questions than answers. Every delegate left feeling less confident than when they had arrived. Veltar returned to his quarters and looked out at the stars. Somewhere beyond that view, the humans had gone to places unknown. They had taken their chaos with them, leaving behind a galaxy that was discovering how much it needed the impossible dot in the distance. Automated systems continued the work that human hands had started. Trade routes functioned according to human-designed protocols. Peace treaties held because of human-written clauses. Medical equipment saved lives using human-developed techniques. The humans were gone, but their fingerprints remained on everything that mattered. And slowly, terrifyingly, those fingerprints were beginning to fade. 1 year after the humans left, Ambassador Veltar stood in the council chamber watching 3 different species argue about the same star system. The shouting had been going on for 6 hours, and no one was any closer to a solution. The Zephyrian system contained 5 habitable worlds. 3 different species had settled them over the past century, but now they all claimed legal right to the entire system. The Aquatic Union said they had first settlement rights. The Mining Collective claimed resource extraction permits. The Agricultural Federation presented terraforming contracts. All 3 claims were completely legal under Galactic law. The law clearly states that first settlement grants system ownership, declared Ambassador Reef High of the Aquatic Union, her gills fluttering with agitation. My people established the first permanent base on Zephyr 3 in 2387. Resource extraction rights supersede settlement claims when properly filed, countered Director Stoneheart of the Mining Collective. His rocky features showed no emotion, but his voice carried absolute certainty. We filed our permits in 2385, 2 years before any settlement. Both of you are wrong, said Representative Greenbloom of the Agricultural Federation, her plant-like tendrils waving emphatically. Terraforming contracts grant exclusive development rights to entire systems. Our contract predates both of your claims. Each species had brought their finest legal experts. Mountains of documents covered the council tables. Every delegate had reviewed the evidence multiple times. The problem was that all 3 claims were completely valid under current galactic law. Chancellor Marin had consulted with the most brilliant legal minds in the galaxy. The Xanthari legal computers had analyzed every precedent. The ethereal collective had considered all possible interpretations. Everyone agreed, under a strict reading of galactic law, all three species had equal rights to the Zephyrian system. In the old days, whispered Veltar's aide, the humans would have found some creative solution. Something that satisfied everyone, even if it satisfied no one completely. Veltar tried to imagine what humans might have suggested. Shared governance? Rotating control? Dividing the system by industry rather than by world? Some completely new approach that ignored a legal precedent but somehow worked. But Veltar was not human. None of them were human anymore. The legal deadlock continued while the situation on the ground grew worse. Colonists from all three species lived on the same worlds, grew suspicious of each other, and demanded protection from their governments. Military ships from three different fleets patrolled the same space, watching each other with increasing tension. On Zephyr 2, actual fighting broke out between aquatic mining crews and agricultural terraforming teams. 3 people died in what the news called the first colonial war in 2 centuries. The emergency session called to address the crisis lasted 14 hours and accomplished nothing. Every proposal favored one species over the others. Every compromise was rejected as unfair. Every legal interpretation was challenged by experts who knew the law just as well. Meanwhile, other systems reported similar problems. Border disputes that had been settled for decades suddenly became active again as species, reread old treaties, and found loopholes that favored them. Trade agreements collapsed when no one could find middle ground between competing interpretations. Even worse news came from the terraforming projects. The great effort to make Kepler-4 42b habitable had been the pride of galactic civilization for 30 years. 16 different species had worked together to transform the dead world into a garden planet that could support multiple forms of life. The project had just failed. Catastrophically. Chief Engineer Construct Rhyme of the Terraform Collective presented his report to a stunned council. The massive mechanical being projected holographic images of the disaster that had once been Kepler-4 42b. The atmospheric processors experienced a cascade failure when unexpected volcanic activity released sulfur compounds into the air, he explained in his mechanical voice. The chemical interaction created toxic clouds that killed 90% of the introduced plant life. What happened to the backup systems? Asked Chancellor Murrin. The backup systems were designed for known atmospheric variations, Construct Rhyme replied. This situation was not in our specifications. The sulfur compounds created a chemical reaction that our best scientists had not predicted. The holographic display showed withered forests and poisoned lakes. 30 years of work had been destroyed in 3 days. Could this have been prevented? Asked the Chancellor. Unknown, said Construct Rhyme. Our engineering protocols follow precise scientific principles. When those principles encounter unexpected variables, we require new calculations and new protocols. This process takes considerable time. Veltar felt a chill in his crystalline form. What would humans have done in this situation? The chamber fell silent. Finally, Dr. HFY of the Medical Consortium spoke up. I have been reviewing human engineering reports. When they encountered unexpected problems, they did not follow protocols. They improvised. Improvised how? Asked the Chancellor. They made solutions using whatever was available, even if those solutions violated proper engineering principles, Dr. HFY explained. Their terraforming teams carried equipment that was not in the official specifications. When problems arose, they modified their tools in ways that should not have worked, but somehow did work. construct rhymes as optical sensors focused on the doctor. Such methods are inefficient and dangerous. Proper engineering requires precise calculations and tested procedures. Yes, agreed Dr. HFY. But the humans' improper methods had a 97% success rate in crisis situations. Our proper methods have a 12% success rate when facing unexpected problems. The implications were staggering. Every species in the galaxy had evolved specialized approaches to problem solving. Each approach worked perfectly within its intended parameters. But when they faced truly unexpected challenges, their specialization became a weakness. Only humans had maintained the ability to think outside their own systems, to find solutions that broke their own rules, to succeed by doing things that should not have worked. Ambassador Veltar made a disturbing discovery when he returned to his quarters that night. Unable to sleep, he accessed the council's archived session recordings and began reviewing human contributions from years past. What he found changed everything he thought he knew about Galactic civilization. Every major infrastructure project in the galaxy had succeeded because of some minor human modification to the original plans. The quantum communication network that connected all worlds worked because humans had suggested routing protocols that violated standard engineering principles, but somehow reduced interference by 40%. The interspecies medical protocols that had saved millions of lives were based on human suggestions that combined treatments no one else would have thought to mix. The economic systems that kept trade flowing smoothly all used human-designed market stabilizers that made no theoretical sense but prevented crashes. Even the architectural design of the council chamber itself reflected human input. The acoustics, the lighting, the arrangement of seats all had been adjusted according to human recommendations that other species had initially rejected as aesthetically illogical, but had ultimately improved everything. Humans had not just participated in building galactic civilization, they had been its hidden architects, using their strange ability to find impossible solutions to solve problems that no one else could even see. The most disturbing revelation came when Veltar accessed military planning records. The War College had run strategic simulations for decades, gaining out potential conflicts between different species and alliances. For years, those simulations had been strangely inconclusive. Every side could predict what their opponents would do, leading to endless stalemates, where no one could gain an advantage. The simulations had only worked properly when humans participated, because human strategies were so unpredictable that even their allies never knew what they would do next. This chaos had forced all sides to develop flexible responses, making the entire galaxy more secure because no one could rely on their enemies being predictable. Now, without humans, the War College's newest simulations were producing terrifying results. Every species was calculating the same optimal strategies based on logical principles. Wars that started would never end, because both sides would make the same mathematically correct decisions forever. As Veltar reviewed file after file, he began to understand what the galaxy had lost. Humans had not been the strongest species, or the smartest, or the most advanced, but they had been the only species capable of systematic illogic, the ability to deliberately make choices that violated their own principles when those principles led to dead ends. Every other species, when faced with an impossible situation, would improve their existing methods. Only humans would abandon their methods entirely and try something completely different. And now they were gone, leaving behind a galaxy of specialists who were discovering that specialization was not enough. Outside Veltar's window, automated systems maintained the space station according to human design specifications. But those systems could not adapt. could not improvise, could not find impossible solutions when the specifications were wrong. The emergency session had lasted 3 days. Ambassador Veltar looked around the chamber at delegates who appeared more exhausted and frightened than he had ever seen them. The Zephyrian system was still burning with civil war. Kepler 442b remained a poisoned wasteland. 17 other sectors reported cascading failures that no one knew how to fix. Chancellor Moran stood at the center podium. Her usually perfect composure cracked with stress. "The motion before us is unprecedented," she announced. "For the first time in galactic history, we are voting to send a formal expedition to request the return of a member species." The vote was not even close. Every species except the Corthans voted yes, and even they abstained rather than vote no. Commander Grix had grumbled about begging primitives for help, but even he admitted that the galaxy was falling apart without human solutions. Within 2 weeks, the largest joint fleet in galactic history was assembled. Ships from 12 different species, carrying the finest diplomats, scientists, and military officers the Council could provide. Commander HFY of the Star Navy was given overall command, with Ambassador Veltar serving as chief diplomatic officer. The fleet's mission was simple: find the humans, apologize for past mistakes, and convince them to return. The journey to human space took 3 weeks. As they approached the solar system, long-range sensors began transmitting data that confused everyone aboard. "I'm detecting massive energy signatures throughout the system," reported Scanner Chief Detect I. "But they're not weapon signatures. They appear to be maintenance protocols." "Maintenance of what?" asked Commander HFY. "Everything," replied the Scanner Chief. "Every structure in the system is being actively maintained by automated systems, but there are no life signs anywhere." They entered human space with diplomatic flags flying and peace signals broadcasting on all frequencies. The response was immediate and unsettling. "Welcome to Solar System," came an automated voice in perfect galactic standard. "Please state your business and intended destination. Tourist information is available for Mars Colony Museum, Luna Historical District, and Earth Preservation Park." "Preservation Park?" whispered Ambassador Veltar. They approached Earth slowly, expecting to find either a thriving human civilization or the ruins of a dead world. Instead, they found something impossible to understand. Earth was perfectly maintained but completely empty. Every city was clean and functional. Every building was in perfect repair. Parks were trimmed, streets were swept, and lights turned on and off according to normal schedules. But no one lived there anymore. The landing party, led by Veltar and Commander HFY, sat down in what had once been the human capital. They walked through streets that looked like they had been abandoned minutes ago rather than over a year ago. "It's like they just left," said Dr. Zephyr, who had insisted on joining the expedition. "No signs of struggle, no indication of emergency. They just decided to go somewhere else." They found the same pattern throughout the solar system. Mars colonies were empty but maintained. Luna stations continued their automated operations without any crew. Asteroid mining platforms processed, or according to scheduled quotas, and stored the results in massive warehouses that no one would ever collect from. The only clue came when they accessed the communications center on Luna Station. Deep in the facility's archives, they discovered a vast database that no human had ever shared with the galactic community. "This is impossible," breathed Chief Archivist. Data Prime, as his tentacles interfaced with the human computers. These files contain detailed records of every human contribution to galactic civilization. Not just the official contributions we know about, but thousands of smaller interventions we never noticed. The files revealed the true scope of human involvement in galactic affairs. They had not just participated in major projects. They had quietly solved problems that other species never even realized existed. Trade route optimization, algorithms that prevented economic crashes, communication protocols that reduced interspecies misunderstandings, medical procedures that saved lives during routine treatments, engineering specifications that prevented structural failures before they happened. "Look at this," said Dr. HFY, accessing medical files. They developed treatments for 17 different diseases that affect multiple species. We thought those treatments came from our own research teams. The humans never took credit. "And this," added Chief Engineer Constructrime, reviewing infrastructure files. "Every major construction project in the past century includes what we called minor design modifications suggested by human consultants. These modifications prevented 73 catastrophic failures that would have killed millions. But the most shocking discovery was in the diplomatic archives. Hidden in routine paperwork, they found evidence of thousands of small interventions that had prevented conflicts between different species. Arguments that could have led to wars had been quietly resolved by human mediators who never reported their involvement to anyone. They were not just participants in galactic civilization," realized Ambassador Veltar. "They were its immune system. They found and fixed problems before those problems could spread." The final piece of the puzzle came from a personal message left by the last human ambassador, Dr. Sarah Chun. Her image appeared on the main screen, recorded just before humanity's departure. "To whoever finds this message," Dr. Chun began, "we want you to understand that we are not leaving in anger. We are leaving in disappointment." She paused, looking directly into the camera with tired eyes. "For 2 centuries, we participated in galactic civilization. We offered our ideas, our solutions, our perspective. Most of the time, those contributions were dismissed as primitive thinking or lucky accidents." The recording showed scenes from council sessions where human delegates had been interrupted, ignored, or openly mocked by other species who considered themselves more advanced. "We realized that you did not see us as partners," Dr. Chun continued. "You saw us as interesting pets who occasionally said something useful. You took our solutions, but never our reasoning. You implemented our ideas, but never tried to understand how we reached them." Dr. Chun's expression grew sad. "We were never seeking glory or recognition. But when every breakthrough is attributed to superior species, when every successful project is credited to advanced civilizations, and when our methods are called primitive, even as our results save lives, we began to understand our true position." The message showed scenes of human colonies, human ships, and human families, all preparing for some massive undertaking. "We are not abandoning you," Dr. Chun said firmly. "We are giving you space to grow. The galaxy has become dependent on human problem-solving, but that dependency prevents other species from developing their own adaptive capabilities." She gestured toward data displays that showed galactic civilization's growing reliance on human solutions. "Every time we fix a problem for you, we prevent you from learning to fix problems yourselves. Every time we find an impossible solution, we make it easier for you to avoid facing impossible situations." The recording shifted to show massive construction projects in the outer solar system. Structures that no galactic species could identify, built with technologies that seemed decades ahead of anything humans had previously demonstrated. "We have found something beyond this galaxy," Dr. Chun explained. "A universe where different forms of intelligence work together not as superiors and inferiors, but as equal partners in exploration. We are going there to build something new." The message included star charts showing trajectories toward the galactic edge, where deep space monitoring stations had detected enormous energy signatures moving beyond the observable universe. "We leave behind these archives so you can understand what you have lost, Doctor," Chun continued, "not as punishment but as education. Every solution we provided is documented here, along with the reasoning behind it. Study our methods. Learn to think as we thought. Develop your own ability to find impossible solutions. Our final words carry both sadness and hope. When you have learned to be truly galactic instead of merely interstellar, when you can solve impossible problems, not by following our examples, but by developing your own impossible methods, you will know how to find us. The recording ended with coordinates pointing beyond the edge of the galaxy, toward regions that no Council ship had ever explored. Commander Dex High studied the stellar charts with growing dismay. These coordinates point to areas beyond our navigation capabilities. Our fastest ships would take centuries to reach the galactic edge, and we have no idea what lies beyond it. Even if we could follow them, added Chief Engineer Construct Rhyme, the energy signatures suggest they are using technologies far more advanced than anything in our databases. They are not just ahead of us. They are ahead of us by generations. The expedition team spent 2 weeks examining every human facility in the solar system. They found perfectly maintained infrastructure, comprehensive archives of human knowledge, and detailed explanations of every human contribution to galactic civilization. What they did not find were any humans thought the return journey was quiet and somber. Every member of the expedition understood that they had not just lost a member species, they had lost the teachers they never knew they needed. What do we tell the Council? Asked Ambassador Veltar as they approached. Ambassador Veltar stood before the full assembly of the Galactic Council, holding a datapad that contained the future of galactic civilization. 6 months had passed since the expedition returned from human space with devastating news. The humans were gone. Truly gone, and they had been far more important than anyone had realized. The chamber was different now. The human chair remained empty, but it was no longer ignored. Fresh flowers sat on the human desk every day, placed there by different species in rotation. The human flag still flew, and beneath it hung a new sign, reserved for our teachers. Chancellor Marin called the session to order. Her voice carried exhaustion from months of crisis management. Ambassador Veltar will present the final report of the Archive Committee. Veltar activated his presentation, and holographic displays filled the chamber with images from the human archives. Graphs, charts, and data streams showed the true scope of human contributions to galactic civilization. The evidence is overwhelming, Veltar began. For 2 centuries, humans served as the problem-solving backbone of galactic civilization. They prevented 1,247 potential conflicts before they could start. They resolved 3,891 technical failures before they could spread. They created solutions for 15,663 problems that other species never even noticed existed. The chamber remained silent as the data spoke for itself. Every major achievement of galactic civilization had human fingerprints somewhere in its development. More disturbing, Veltar continued, is what we have learned about ourselves. Every species in this chamber has become so specialized in their approach to problems that we can no longer adapt when our specialization fails. He displayed the results of recent experiments. The Zentari can solve any logical problem, but they cannot function when logic fails. The Ethereal Collective can plan perfect futures, but they cannot adjust when the unexpected happens. The Corthans can win any conventional war, but they lose to unconventional tactics. Commander Grix shifted uncomfortably in his seat but did not object. We have all become experts in being ourselves, Veltar said. But humans were experts in becoming whatever was needed. Dr. HFY rose to address the assembly. The medical committee has been studying human problem-solving methods for the past 6 months. We discovered something remarkable. Humans did not have better brains than any of us. They had worse brains in some ways, less logical than Zentari, less organized than Ethereals, less focused than Corthans. She paused to let this sink in. But they were the only species that deliberately fought against their own mental tendencies. When logic failed, they embraced emotion. When planning failed, they improvised. When strength failed, they used intelligence. They were capable of systematic self-contradiction. Chief Engineer Construct Rhyme activated his own display. We have attempted to duplicate human engineering methods. Our initial results were disastrous. When we told our engineers to think like humans, they produced chaos without purpose. Random modifications that made everything worse. Murmurs of concern rippled through the chamber. However, Construct Rhyme continued, we have discovered that human chaos was not random. It followed patterns that we are beginning to understand. They broke rules systematically, not accidentally. Their impossible solutions were impossible in logical ways. The engineer showed examples from human archives. When humans encountered a problem that their normal methods could not solve, they asked a specific question. What if everything we know about this is wrong? Then they explored that possibility seriously, not as a thought experiment. Ambassador Veltar retook the podium. This brings me to our recommendation. The Archive Committee, working with representatives from every major species, proposes the creation of the Human Studies Institute. The holographic display showed architectural plans for a massive new facility on the neutral world of Geneva Prime, research centers, training facilities, and experimental laboratories designed according to human principles that encourage creative failure. The Institute will have 3 primary missions, Veltar explained. First, to study and document human problem-solving methods until we understand them well enough to teach them. Second, to train individuals from every species in adaptive thinking techniques. Third, to serve as a permanent reminder of what we lost when we failed to value our teachers. Chancellor Marin leaned forward. What evidence do we have that other species can learn to think like humans? Dr. HFY answered. We have been conducting small experiments for the past 3 months. Young individuals from different species, trained together in human-inspired methods, have successfully solved problems that stumped our greatest experts. She showed recordings of mixed-species teams working on engineering challenges. Young Xanthari learning to embrace emotional intuition. Ethereal younglings practicing improvisation. Corthan cadets studying flexibility instead of rigid doctrine. The younger generation learns faster, Dr. HFY reported. Adults struggle to overcome their specialized training, but children adapt quickly to human-style thinking. This brings us to our most important recommendation, said Ambassador Veltar. We propose establishing the protocol of educational exchange. Every species will send their most promising young individuals to learn adaptive thinking. In return, those individuals will return home to teach others. The chamber erupted in discussion. Some delegates worried about corrupting their species' traditional strengths. Others feared that learning human methods would make them weak or chaotic. But Archivist Prime, eldest member of the council, slowly raised several tentacles for attention. When the chamber quieted, his ancient voice carried absolute authority. I have reviewed historical records going back 2,000 years, he said. Every species in this chamber has faced extinction events at least once in their history. Every species survived because they learned to adapt, to change their methods when their methods failed. His tentacles gestured toward the empty human chair. Humans were the only species that made adaptation their primary strength. They remained adaptable, even after achieving technological superiority. They continued to change, even when change was difficult. The old archivist's next words silenced every objection. The humans left us detailed instructions for finding them again. But those instructions require us to develop technologies and methods that we cannot currently imagine. They are not hiding from us. They are waiting for us to grow up. The vote was closer than Veltar had hoped, but the Human Studies Institute was approved by a significant margin. Construction began immediately, with volunteers from every species contributing materials and labor. 6 months later, the first class of students arrived at the Institute. Young beings from 47 different species, chosen for their intelligence, creativity, and willingness to challenge their own assumptions. The curriculum was unlike anything attempted before in galactic education. Students were taught to fail constructively, to embrace contradiction, to find solutions that violated their own principles when those principles led to dead ends. The first breakthrough came during a terraforming exercise. A team of mixed-species students faced the same type of atmospheric crisis that had destroyed Kepler 442b. Traditional approaches had failed in the simulation for 3 weeks. Then a young Xanthari named Logicrime suggested something that horrified his instructors, deliberately introducing chaos into the atmospheric system to disrupt the toxic chemical reactions. But chaos cannot be controlled, protested his engineering professor. Exactly, replied Logicrime. We cannot control chaos, but we can ride it, like humans used to do. The simulation team implemented his suggestion, introducing random variables into their terraforming process. The chaos disrupted the toxic reactions, but it also disrupted their planned atmosphere composition. So they adapted in real time, making decisions based on moment-by-moment observations rather than long-term calculations. It was messy, unpredictable, and completely contrary to proper terraforming doctrine. It worked perfectly. News of the success spread throughout the galaxy. Within a year, Institute-trained teams were solving problems that had stumped conventional experts for decades. The Zephyrian system crisis was resolved when a mixed-species team suggested something unprecedented: shared sovereignty that rotated based on seasonal cycles rather than political boundaries. The piracy problem was solved when Institute graduates started fighting chaos with better chaos, using unpredictable tactics that confused the pirates until they gave up piracy as too difficult. Most importantly, the galaxy began to adapt again. Species that had been locked into rigid thinking patterns for millennia started experimenting with new approaches to old problems. But the greatest success came 5 years after the Institute's founding, when long-range sensors detected something impossible, a signal from beyond the galactic edge. The message was brief: your progress has been observed. You are learning to ask the right questions. When you are ready for the next lesson, you will know how to find us. The universe is vast, and there is room for everyone to become more than they were. We are proud of how far you have come. Ambassador Veltar, now director of the Human Studies Institute, stood in the transmission center as the message repeated across all frequencies.